Gary's Economics spoke with YouTuber JimmyTheGiant, and they spoke about the political project on the left going forward, immigration, how we appeal to people, and I just want to cover the middle section of the interview. Go and check it out after this video, so let's get straight into it.
The big question I want to ask, what do you think we need to do? What do you think we need to achieve ultimately? How do you think we need to play it to stop things from getting worse in the long run? Because a thing I struggle with is I think we're going to lose.
Yeah, I was talking to my missus about that. Like, I was saying, like, Gary is a pessimist. Sorry, I'm not.
No, tell me what you think. I think
that's I would say I land on being more optimistic. Perhaps that's always just how my attitude has been. And I was thinking, you come across as a realist, and realists are pessimists because reality is the fight is unbelievably challenging.
Yeah.
And if you're to be a realist, like, you can make the argument it's very unlikely.
Yeah.
But I think that is important to have that realism because it does keep you grounded.
But I want to make clear, when I say I think we're going to lose,
I think you have to be realistic in terms of the brain, but optimistic of heart. I think you can be a pessimistic realist and go, yes, the situation the left is in, we haven't got the funding of the Joe Rogans, the big podcasts. We haven't got the media institutions. People like to say that most media is somehow leftist, where it's usually liberal, centrist, capitalist, neoliberal. So we're up against it. But you have to be optimistic. Again, I really do have hope for the future. I have hope for people. And once people are fed the right information and are informed on the issues, because most of what people are fed, they have to be convinced out of high taxes. Like, if you poll people on healthcare, free healthcare, like better, more spending, higher taxes for the wealthy, to people love that stuff. They want free stuff. They want free internet. But they have to be dissuaded from it by Fox News, Daily Mail. So that's what we're fighting against. But you have to have optimism because otherwise, we'll just give up.
That doesn't mean I think we're definitely going to lose. I wouldn't do this job listen, I'm a trader, I'm a betting man, right? I wouldn't do this job if I thought we were definitely going to lose. I'd just be off making my fucking millions. I'd be in the Philippines somewhere drinking pina coladas, right? I don't need to do this, right? I think that we have a chance. I think that in a sense that because I'm so pessimistic about the economy, I think that actually creates massive political opportunities. I think that the level of discontent on the street is massive. I think that people don't fucking like Nigel Farage. They just don't see anyone better.
That's it, yeah.
I think they honestly don't see anyone better. Look,
That's true. And we've got to embrace the idea of populism and just charismatic leadership because that's here to stay now. Trump has changed politics. Boris Johnson changed politics. Nigel Farage has changed politics. The idea of being like a technocrat and, Keir Starmer, he's like a piece of wood. You need people making jokes, cracking jokes, people that are real. Nigel Farage isn't going to improve people's lives, but he's different. Or he has the perception that he's different, even though he's privately educated, he's a millionaire. He's very good at selling himself. So is Donald Trump. Elon Musk, not as good. People don't like him. But he did 10 years ago. Elon Musk was this, tech genius billionaire. Now he's a joke. But we need to embrace populism and people who are, you want to listen to them talk.
Will hate the Tories. They increasingly hate Labour. And Nigel Farage is just like, I'm someone else.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a fucking gap.
That's why I would say I'm optimistic. I like see a lot of stuff as like I play board games with my mates quite a bit, like a lot of strategy games, and I'm not even that good. I always come second, but my mate is very good. I'm a very smart mate, and I always at the end of the game I always sort of like say, how did you do it? And he's got such a strategical, he can think steps forward. So I have picked up a bit of it, and I like looking at things like that. So like I see right now as a massive, what you're saying, like a massive opportunity. Like there's two sides, and it requires lots of things to go right in order for it to work. But I can see something like the fact that in Britain, if we compare, like, say, everywhere's seeing this far right surge, and that's obviously the fear of people who are like quite economically left wing or whatever. The far right surge is worrying, but we see it in like European nations, we see it in America, and we see it a little bit in Britain. But I think Britain stands in a particularly different sort of set of material circumstances that make us a little bit less likely to really fall down that rabbit hole, and we have a bit more opportunity. And I think a lot of it, and it's like every bad thing can be a good thing at some point. It's like we had 14 fucking years of austerity, and like I think when you look at reform, and I know they're a bit clever, like sometimes they say some sort of economically left-wing thing, we want to get free rail, like nationalise the rail and stuff. But fundamentally, their economic beliefs are small state, cuts. And like you look at Rupert Lowe, he talks about we need to shrink the state, and they're sort of regurgitating that stuff.
Yeah, and that's a real problem for reform, because their contract last year had massive spending whilst simultaneous tax cuts. Where's this money coming from? Raising tax to £20,000 a year? All this spending? The reality of what they will deliver is very different. And they talk about it in a minute, but it really relies on what Trump is able to do. And will he be able to deliver? I don't think so.
I don't think that rhetoric will play well in British people specifically, because we've had 14 years of slashing the state. We've cut $500 billion in planned spending across those years, and we're all aware of it. We can see the results of shrinking the state. So that rhetoric, I know they're always going to lead with immigration because that can get people in the door. But if we really jump on like talking about their economic policies, it's exactly the same as what we've had, and you're basically reform are just saying more cuts. Like that is fundamentally where it will be. So if we can jump on them on that stuff, then also the second thing is that Donald Trump, he's like so tied to reform. Like if you think the success or lack of success of Donald Trump is also the lack or the benefit to reform. If Trump does really well, reform will probably do well. But if Trump does really bad, that's not good for reform because they're like in bed with him basically. So
yeah, and already Trump has rolled back on so many things. Day one, grocery prices reduced. He ain't going to do that. Inflation has already gone up in January, 3%. The tariffs, once they kick in, are going to increase prices on steel, aluminium. You're going to see more kind of instability because America relies on China. Once you start kind of undermining that relationship, you make an increasing unstable world. And that's when prices go up. That's when inflation goes up. And Trump is very aware of the stock market. That's all he really cares about and follows. And he will see that, oh God, this isn't good for my friends. And he's already on that trajectory. What's he going to do? It's only going to get worse. The question with Trump is, how bad is it going to get for the average American? And I guarantee now, I really do believe this, the midterms are not going to go well for Trump because people aren't going to see egg prices go down. The gas is going to go up. Things they buy are going to go up because of tariffs and tax cuts, deficit spending, all the stuff he did in his first term.
Trump has 4 years, and our election, if I'm not mistaken, is just after when he will come out of office.
Yeah, it should be if it goes 5 years.
If he doesn't do another coup.
Yeah.
So, like, we've got...
Which is a possibility. Like, so much of Trump's first term was him being constrained by people saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And there will be an element of that now. Like, oh, yeah, another crazy idea. We'll think about it. Can we just focus on this? But if he's unrestrained, like, he will unleash chaos and people will finally wake up to who he is. And they do politicians, like most politics, like Trump wasn't popular by the end of his first term. and he won't be by the end of this term. But it's how quick can people wake up to the reality that he wants for the average American, which is not a better life. It's not.
Opportunity where we're going to see the Donald Trump era, and then we have our election. So that is material. That's like quite a different kettle of fish to other people. Like for us, that's really good. We've had this 14 years of austerity. We don't like big cuts. Then we're going to see what Donald Trump does. Hopefully, in our like from a gameplay mechanics sort of perspective, you want Donald Trump to kind of fail. Like it will help us.
Yeah.
And so then after that, hopefully in those 5 years, we'll have enough time to push this message. And the other thing is, Reform are fucking doing really well right now. All the attention's on them right now.
Yeah.
Can they keep that momentum for 5 years? And can we come up in that period of time? That's my...
I think... Yeah. Not to again be the pessimist.
Go on.
So I think that... I don't think...
It's hard for Reform because they've been doing well over the last year, but maintaining that energy is inherently difficult because at a certain point people go, they move on to stuff. Like, you're the man of the moment, and the more kind of people's living standards and people are exposed to what Trump is doing, people will go, maybe Farage is not the answer. And then what's the alternative? That's the big question. Who can fill that vacuum? And unfortunately, that's not. There's no what. Who is filling the vacuum?
I think Donald Trump will stop American living standards from falling. So I think you're right in that, because I think he's committed to cutting tax on the rich. I don't think that's going to be good. I think living standards will keep falling in the States. The problem we have is that I also think Labour will fail.
Yeah, that's our problem.
So, and it's weird in a way, because of course, Labour are supposed to be a centre-left party. Trump and the Republicans are supposed to be a centre-right party, but they will both fail because of the same reason, which is that they will not deal with growing inequality. And I think I haven't spoken about this yet, but like next election will be interesting because the right will be split between the Conservatives and Reform. Labour, I think, will almost certainly do pretty badly. So you could end up with this kind of weird three-way split. Labour will probably also lose more to the Greens.
But that's to assume that Labour won't get taken over.
So this is
that's what we need to do.
And this is, you know, what I wanted to ask you then after this was like, after this sort of, you know, what do you think our chances are? I wanted to sort of zoom in a bit more on you and me, because you and me are you and me, and what we need to do is what is like the best thing from our strategic position. Which is, what is the best thing for like us to do? Because my plan, I think there's going to be an opening. I was going to say I think there's going to be an opening on Labour, but to be honest, I kind of think fuck Labour. Not in that sense. I don't want to be like I hate Labour, but what I mean is, I think our only chance is to get the idea that inequality is the cause of living standards. Bang at the front of the conversation, and it doesn't, because you look.
I agree, but also, what other? Okay, you could create a new party. We need to convince Labour. That's the problem. We need to convince liberalism, neoliberalism, that it's dead, that it's failed. We need to convince Labour that we need to be going left, not right. The problem is with the immigration debate, they've ceded ground. They're basically talking. They are literally talking like Reform now. And we're seeing the same in America. Biden kind of didn't really push back against the anti-immigration rhetoric. George Bush did. He was a pro-immigrant president. He celebrated. He said, we are a nation of immigrants. When do you hear presidents and leaders saying that now? And that's where Keir Starmer and Biden failed, where you don't defend immigration. You don't big it up and go, look, we are a nation of immigrants. They've just completely ceded ground. That's the problem. So yeah, in a way, I agree, fuck Labour, because they are not really pushing back. They're not being strong and actually going, look at the benefits of immigration. Yes, we have problems, but let's tackle those problems and let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And the only real means of doing that is through Labour. Yeah, I think the Green Party are strong in many ways, but they're not. They haven't got the energy. They haven't got the charisma. They haven't got the resources to compete with Reform and the Tories. So we kind of need to push Labour left. That's the only option. And when we see that they're failing and they don't deliver and they don't reduce inequality, we need someone to come in and be like, right, we need this. Again, we had Corbyn, but the smear campaign against him because he was going to go after the papers, he was going to go after the rich. They play dirty. So we need someone who's charismatic and going to offer a genuine alternative. Is that going to happen then?
Look at Rupert Murdoch, right? He doesn't fucking lobby the Conservative Party. He fucking tells the people what to think.
Very good.
And then the Conservative Party have to do what he says. Because if he controls what the people believe, then
that pushes
then
it.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that's the biggest opposition is it's just media. Roger Ailes started Fox News in 1986 with this goal in mind. We are not going to have a Watergate situation again. As in, like, we're not going to have a president be held accountable for their actions. They want to use the media to control, to manufacture consent. And that's what we have. A lot of the immigration debate is just a distraction from inequality, the real issues. Because why would they talk about inequality, real issues, living standards, when they can just blame it on immigrants? And the Liberals have ceded ground. They've gone, oh, yeah, let's go. Instead of going further left, they've gone right. That's the biggest problem we face now.
Wrong. You know, I would love to have Labour coming to me and saying, you know, come. But the truth is, even if Labour were behind me, if the public didn't believe that you need to deal with inequality, Labour couldn't do shit anyway. So I think that, okay, look, at our YouTube channels or whatever, medium-sized or whatever, but like, we have a public voice and we can, to some degree, influence what the public think.
And an engaged voice, like our audience. I think they feel, and that's what I like reading in the comments, and I see it in yours as well. It doesn't sound like people are kind of like on our side and they're like championing us, and that's like a good sign for like some kind of like movement or something. Is that you got people that you're giving them faith, like you're giving them someone that can help fight for them, and that's like a good thing. I think what you're saying is right. Personally, like I would happily see just a pressure group, could be a party. Like ultimately, like UKIP were very good at pressuring the Tories, and I'm not opposed to that. My hope would be that you make a pressure group that forces Labour in a direction. And what you're saying, if you can force the public
push
attitude,
the public, push the public,
I see what you're saying.
Like push the at the end of the day, if I'm right on this, and I think I am right, the public are fucked if you don't deal with inequality.
Yeah.
And if the public know that, if they really know that, then it doesn't fucking matter what Labour do, and it doesn't matter what the Conservatives, it doesn't matter what Farage do, because the public...
That is true. It is the main source of so many social ills. Like the correlation, the data is unequivocal. Longitudinal studies, epidemiology, it's there. The data is clear. Inequality causes more crime, higher incarceration rates, mental health issues, distrust, diabetes, ill health. It's all not just correlated, causated. But it's not sexy. It's academic. You talk about inequality, people shut off and go, ugh. We need to talk about the billionaires, the Jeffrey Bezos, the Elon Musk, the Peter Thiel, how they're freaks, how they have too much control. That's what we need to do. Bernie Sanders was great at this. Just harp on about the billionaires. The billionaires are taking all the wealth, whereas you have nothing. It's not the immigrant. It's not the trans person. It's the people at the top. And that's what we just got to keep harping on about it. I harp on about it at this channel. Just keep talking about it. Who's your real enemy? Is it 1/5 of the UK workforce immigrants? Or is it a tiny fraction of a small group who have disproportionate power, disproportionate wealth? They have it all. And then they're making us argue amongst each other about immigrants and trans people. and woke pronouns.
Public can say, we are not going to vote for fucking anyone who doesn't deliver on this issue. And I think that is what I would hope to achieve. And when I say that, like, this is one of the reasons why I kind of wanted to have you on. It's not just me, and it's not just you, and it's not just me and you. This is a societal conversation. And if enough people get behind this idea, and it's obviously because we have YouTube channels, we can amplify our voices, but everyone has a fucking voice. Yeah. So everyone goes out, like, this is not something that will be decided on YouTube, right? Like, people are going to watch this, and then they're going to go to the pub with their mates, right? Yeah, and they're going to talk about it to their mates, right? And they're going to go to fucking church, and they're going to go to fucking mosque, and they're going to go to fucking football, and they're going to go to fucking hair salon. You know what I mean? Like, ultimately,
it kind of is going to be decided on YouTube. Like, legacy media, mainstream media, people don't trust it. They are more likely to get the news from, like, Tim Pool, Joe Rogan, Ben Shapiro, someone on the right, Count Dankula, the Lotus Eater Boys. It is going to be decided on YouTube. That's why you need figures like JimmyTheGiant, Gary's Economics, big leftist YouTubers who are challenging the narrative, because that's where the information war is, on YouTube, on Twitter. So I think he's being modest here, but yeah, people will have discussions but they're not going to be talking about inequality. They're going to be talking about figures like, what's Farage like? Do you like him? And people will be like, well, I don't necessarily like him, but, you know, he's different, and I don't agree with everything he says, but he is promising this. And then you just got to go, okay, well, break down, okay, what's he promising? How is he going to do it? How is he going to cost it? How is he going to lower immigration? And then just have a conversation. But yeah, YouTube is a big platform for politics.
what I want people to do, or what I want you to do, obviously you're your own man, what I want the people watching to do is the same thing I'm doing, which is fucking convince people.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, like, if you can just if our job is to try and get...
But it's harder than ever because we're so divided. Like, the point of this channel is to convince people. And I'm not saying I'm good at it. I just want to be honest with people and talk about stuff and talk about the evidence and facts and try and debunk misinformation and how the right often use certain wedge issues to avoid talking about the real issues. But how do you convince people? Well, someone has to want to be convinced. That's the problem. I think people are so stubborn, and often on the right, they're not interested in experts and facts and evidence and inequality. If you show them charts about inequality, it's kind of abstract. And they go, well, I think it's immigration. And you go, if they're not willing to engage with that, it's impossible. Like, having a conversation is based on back and forth. You say something, I respond to you. But if that person isn't listening to you, what's the point? I mean, it's really hard. I genuinely think it's harder now to convince someone on the right than ever, because often they came to their conclusions based on feelings and not facts. How do you deal with that? The only way is emotion. Appeal to their emotion. Like, billionaires are taking your wealth from you. The hard work you create, it's your boss that is taking the value from you that you create, not the immigrant. But it's hard because you're facing such a big machine that has billionaire funding, has massive resources. And what does the left have? They have nothing. We have nothing. These are two guys that are fairly well off, but are they going to put money into institutions and, like, fund a, top, on the ground activism? The challenge we face is just so big. And I can see why a lot of people are pessimistic.
Get the yappy political guy in your group to start seeing what we're seeing. If we can get him on board, he and this could be anyone who's literally watching. You might not have a YouTube channel or something, but it could just be some bro who loves his politics and that, and he's the guy who will chat about that amongst his group, and he will softly influence his group, and then that can, if that happens on a large scale, that massively changes.
One thing I want to say on this when you mention that is just like, don't be pricks to your mates, basically, because I know like you can piss people off if you're too aggressive, like, and I know like I try not to talk. And I hope I haven't done it too. I try not to talk disrespectfully about people who vote for Reform, people who like Donald Trump, people who like Nigel Farage. Like I think these guys are misdirecting you. We need to be
Obviously, interpersonally, just be nice to people. Like, I don't call if I'm talking to a Reform supporter, I'm not going to call them a racist to their face. I'm just going to have a conversation with them. I will call Nigel Farage racist, Rupert Lowe racist, Richard Tice racist. But we have got to separate the leaders from the people who support them. I agree with that completely. Because most people aren't racist. We're actually one of the most progressive countries, most tolerant, most open, liberal countries. We are. The data's clear. Two of the most dominant ideologies are feminism and environmentalism. Where else in the world is that the case? Some European countries, Denmark, Finland. We are one of the most progressive, and we've got to tap into that because we fought fascism and won, and we will do it again.
like, you don't win arguments by telling people around you that they're fucking pricks.
That's exactly what
Like 100%. Like, we need to be bringing people in here, man. We need to be like supporting, and like, people are scared, man. People are scared. Look, people are hating immigrants, right? Because I watched Sky News the other day, and it said there, housing crisis, immigrants.
God damn.
It's simple as that, right? And people think, because people are being told that they can't get housed because of immigrants. So like, you can't turn around and be like, anyone who wants low immigration is a racist, anyone who wants low immigration is a prick. Like, we need to convince them, look, it's the growing inequality. We need to make that case, and it's not about like pissing people off and pushing people away. Like people are scared, man.
Yeah, I agree. That's like one of those ones where you're saying like, where I was thinking earlier, you know, I said about the meritocracy. There's a few certain like sticking points that I think people need more information on, simplified. Because at some point, people didn't believe in meritocracy. At some point, people didn't believe immigrants were the cause of all problems, but they heard a few little things and they built up that story, that like belief in their head. And I think like the immigration one is one I try and attack at the moment. I've done a few videos, but it's like this zero sum we have a massive gap of information with immigration. That was a bar. Gap of information about immigration, because we see it in such a zero sum way about when it comes to economics. And this is like this thing that I realised as I got older is like little information on a topic is worse than no information. It's like a classic thing people say. And like immigration is a really good one, because you could say something like, you witness, I don't know, you worked in this industry, say it was like, I don't know, you worked at a shop, you just stacking shelves or something, and you notice that there's now like an Asian guy doing that job. In your head, from an individual level, if you don't understand macroeconomics, you have seen that guy took your job, and that's how you see it. But the understanding around immigration, how it affects economies, is one of these areas, because we're so poorly informed about it. You would look at it from a surface level and not have a deeper understanding. It'd be like looking at the earth in front of you and going, the world is flat. But we know it's not flat because when we were in school, we were taught about like how the fucking solar system works and all that. But because we see things and we have such a gap of information, you don't understand, like if an immigrant comes in and he takes your job, blah, 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 whatever, you see that as a net negative to your life. But that immigrant who's come in, he's brought in, let's say, he needs his hair cut once every week, or he needs to go get his car repaired, and he needs to go buy food, he goes to the local restaurant. That immigrant has brought trade to thousands of businesses. So like the way we understand economy on like a individual level, when we see this guy's taking your job, we're not seeing the wider invisible effect that he is bringing benefits to your economy. So like this is one of those things where if there's a lack of information, people will just use their sort of like first-hand interpretation of what immigration looks like in their life or whatever, and not expand it out to wider economic.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation on immigration, especially economically. And Farage knows he can't talk about the economic evidence. He can't, because it's there. Like, more immigrants, you raise the economy, you the more people in the country, the more services, the more labor. Labor is a commodity that the more you have it, the more production, the more value you create in your economy, and the bigger the economy gets. You take 1/5 of the workforce of immigrants out of the economy objectively would be worse. It'd shrink, it would cause more inflation. But Farage doesn't talk about the economics of immigration. He talks about the cultural aspect, the not assimilating. And there's an element of truth to it. There is an element of truth to that. And we should be able to talk about it and go, yeah, but it's a two-way traffic. Integration is a conversation of, right, this is our values. These are our values. This is what we value. Feminism, environmentalism, progressivism. We're a progressive country. And if you don't value these, we need to convince you that the environment you came from isn't where you are now. And we need to have that difficult conversation. And that has been ceded by the right. They just demonize immigrants. And it is to them, it's a zero-sum game of they should be here or not. And if they integrate, they've got to go. No, it is more nuanced. And it's difficult to have a nuanced conversation about immigration because it has become often a sign of I'm blaming my problems on immigrants. It's often not nuanced. And I'm open to nuanced conversations, but it's just not happening with immigration. That's my problem with the immigration debate. Often it kind of leads to racism very quickly. And it's very troubling.
It's like that immigrant is a benefit because he's bought a load of trade or he's a new customer to this business. If you fit carpets or whatever, he will one day need his carpet fit. He will employ you. Like, do you see what I'm saying? And this is one of the topics, like the meritocracy, where that lack of information, that lack of understanding allows people to just say like, yeah, they're taking your jobs. They're doing this. They're like, stealing the houses and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, man, I worry about the like corrosive effect it has on like just communities, basically like this, because I know that, people who want low immigration, they're not racists. Yeah. There are some racists, but a lot of people just hold like this is the economic problem, right?
Yeah.
But
that's why they always say, I'm not a racist, and that's why I've got an Asian mate, because they're not fundamentally hatred. They don't have a hatred of their skin color or whatever. They're being told that they're the root of the problem on a macro level.
Yeah, I just see like, it's fucking divisive.
It is, yeah.
It's fucking divisive, and I come from East London, and it's like very, very, very multicultural place, right? And that's not like unique by any stretch of the imagination. Like, especially when we talk about poorer people in this country, especially when we talk about the cities, especially when we talk about younger people. It's a fucking multicultural country now, right? And I worry that all of this narrative, all of this like discussion about it is driving people against each other and making people distrust each other. And for me, like the message I'm trying to push, the message I'm trying to sell is like, that group over there, they're gonna take your stuff. And this, on an individual basis, they're much stronger than you. And the only way you can defend yourself is working together.
Yeah.
And if, the working classes, which is, the working classes is racially diverse. The working classes of the country is racially diverse. And listen, talking about the levels of migration you want is one thing. And like, I'm open to that.
Yeah.
But like, if this starts to spill into just like distrust between people of different races, we're fucked.
Are you saying like you think instead of trying to dispel every myth around immigration or every argument or whatever, even, if they have some good arguments or whatever, instead of going down that route of trying to debunk and disprove and stuff, you would say it's better to just put the attention on the real like problem, which is obviously inequality. So like, are you saying from a strategical point of view, you don't know how valuable it is to like go into the ins and outs of why these people are wrong, but rather try and show why you're right?
This is something I've thought about quite a lot. There's a degree to which it's intentional that I haven't engaged that much with the debate on immigration because I think it's fucking divisive. And I grew up in a very like multicultural area, and Like I went to the schools I went to. Literally, I went to schools that were like 5% white.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
My school was like at least 50-60% black, so they were like mainly Nigerians. So I was just completely normal with it. I was like, I didn't think about it.
I just feel like if I would like to find a way.
And that's the thing, it's exposure. Usually it's more predominantly white towns and cities that are skeptical of immigration, which is a paradox because they've not had that exposure. Whereas you go to London, yeah, there'll be people who will vote reform, but often it's that exposure. And it is divisive, but we have to have this conversation because it has been seeded by the right. And it has that last 100 years, that's all they've gone on about. It's a very potent tool that was used against the Jews. It was used against people coming from the Caribbean, and it's used against people coming from Poland. And now it's being used against Muslims and people who are coming over from Afghanistan, Eritrea, and war-torn countries, refugees. We need to have that conversation. Yes, we can talk about inequality, but we need to talk about the relationship between what the problem is, inequality, and also talk about immigration as well. Like, it's not an either or, just like, oh no, just ignore the immigration debate and just talk about inequality. No, we need to talk about both in an honest way, but it has to be driven by data evidence and look at the pros and then go, how do we mitigate the costs? Because freedom of movement outweighs everything. And we should be like, it's a freedom argument. Who are we to say where someone lives? They benefit us economically. They bring culture difference. And we need to defend that because the right have really just hammered immigrants systematically. The Daily Mail, GB News, they keep hammering and we need to defend them. We need someone in their corner. Talk about inequality and immigration.
Obviously, yeah, you're affected in some way by being like a small ethnic minority in the place that you grew up, but you form friendships. Of course, you form friendships with people from different ethnicities, right? Yeah. And we need to be able to see each other as fucking people. You know what I mean? And like not just the differences.
So I always think that. I'm always like, yeah, no matter how much you think you're different to, say, a guy who, even like, say, someone who's come in as a refugee, how different.
Yeah, that's the thing. We need to celebrate that. They're people. That's why it is a racist argument in a way, because you're seeing the skin color. You're not seeing the fact that they're just a person. Just imagine if we could just erase people's skin color and then you just didn't see it. Little goggles. They'd treat you the same. They'd be like, oh my God, take the goggles off. They're a person. That's the problem. We need to actually defend freedom, defend humanity, defend empathy, compassion for the other. That's what we need to defend them. It's not easy. It's not sexy. It's not popular, but we need to.
How different you might think your lives are. Realistically, the things that happen on a political scale, those decisions, the same decision, if they raise a tax on, working class people, or if they, if they cut, more so, if they cut a certain public service, if they underfund the NHS, both you and the refugee are very negatively affected by that exact same decision. Whereas the very wealthy person, they have private healthcare. So like your lives are affected by the same decisions in very similar ways. If house prices go up, that affects you and the guy who goes to the mosque. Your lives are both very negatively affected. The billionaire or the millionaire even, they make money off of that. So it's like you got to start seeing that these same things are affecting the people we think we have a lot of differences with. Our lives are so similar, I'm sure.
Let's talk about how much do you think we can achieve on YouTube?
And I'll end it there. Go to Gary's Economics channel, subscribe. Go to Jimmy the Giant if you're not already subscribed. Why are you not subscribed? Watch the rest of the video. There's interesting stuff about the left, the culture war, and the impact YouTube will have. That's what they talk about next. So go to the channels, and I'll see you in the next video.